That's we rarely have 3% commissions right now as buyer brokers. As we know, the market is very hot, so it doesn't really matter almost what is offered. We're there and trying to get houses for our buyers. HUD homes are usually competitively priced compared to the market. Again, in this marketplace, they're always bid up to what the market is, sometimes over, which is almost every home right now. HUD homes, though, they accept the net sales price no matter what financing is. So I know a lot of you out there with FHA buyers, when you know a house is competitively priced, you won't even bother knowing there's going to be cash offers. HUD homes, you're not going to do that. The lending programs we're going to go over and how they differ with HUD specific homes. We're going to go over repair escrows and how that can help you. The eligibility of HUD homes, the condition and how that affects financing, and the details of condos and HUD homes. Next slide. What is a HUD home? So a HUD home is an FHA insured mortgage that has gone into default. So typically, if you're not familiar with FHA, FHA is ostensibly a insurance policy. So a lender lends 3.5% down, the loan goes bad, the buyer defaults or the borrower defaults, and the lender will then cash in that insurance policy. HUD will then take possession of the property, foreclose on it, and then it comes up as a HUD home. And that is what a HUD home is. It's then passed through an asset manager, and their responsibility is to sell it on the market and on HUDHomestore.com. We are Doug Ledewitz with Pulse Realty and me, Mike Delgrego with New England Realty. We work for the asset manager who then sells those homes for HUD. HUD homes can be a single family resident, a townhouse, condominium, or up to 4 units. So that is what a HUD home is. And Doug Ledewitz, I'll hand this slide off to you.
HUD does have some special incentives to help sell the HUD homes. The most notable one is the $100 down program, where typically for an FHA loan, most buyers would have to put the 3.5% down. HUD does allow a $100 down payment program. So that could be, extremely helpful if the buyer has very limited funds. In addition to that, there is a 203K loan bonus, where if the buyer is using a 203K, which is a HUD renovation loan, the agent, the selling agent, you, AKA buyer's agent, would get a $500 bonus. So that's something else to keep in mind if you're nervous about 203K loans. Repair escrow, that's an item which some people aren't too familiar with. When a borrower is using an FHA loan, to purchase one of these HUD properties, and their appraiser calls out repair items that are required, also called minimum property requirements or MPR, those are typically items that are needed for safety, livability, heating, plumbing, etc. It has to be addressed after the closing. What HUD has and allows on these loans is a repair escrow, and that can be up to $10,000 of repair items. And that escrow can be funded either by the buyer out of their pocket, or if the buyer doesn't have the money, they can borrow that $10,000 and roll it into the loan as well. Then the repairs would be made after the closing and the funds would be released to the contractor. So when you see these property listed, you might see a note about MPR, minimum property requirements, repair items. Those are what is determined by HUD in a very, very short initial inspection, and that is a guide you can use. However, ultimately those repair items will be determined by the buyer's lender. So as long as they come in under 10,000, there is a 10% reserve that's added onto that. But as long as it comes in under 10,000, you don't have to worry, how is my buyer going to get financed? So if it needs a furnace or it has some broken plumbing, where normally you'd be stuck with a 203K renovation loan, you don't have to go that route. You do have the repair escrow option here. Many FHA lenders offer that, not all of them. So it is certainly a good idea to make sure that your lender offers that program if that option needs to be taken either initially or down the road. So talk to a lender about that. If it's over 10,000, then your options are 203K renovation loan. We won't go into that right now in this program, perhaps on a future call, or reach out to us if you have more questions on the renovation loan financing. Back to you, Mike.
Understanding is all HUD houses are sold as is. No warranties, no guarantees, no representations. This truly means as is. So when you're offering on these properties, you want to make sure that your offer is really an understanding of this, preparing your buyer, understanding that no repairs are going to be agreed upon prior to closing. So your buyer is buying this property the way it is, as it is. Even if you're allowed to have a home inspection, but HUD will do no repairs. The only things that are done are to make it safe, secure, and marketable. So if there's a broken stair that is unsafe, they're not going to automatically fix that. We call it out, or their inspector calls it out, and they'll fix the stair. But mind you, they're not fixing the stair to a typical condition. They're going to throw a piece of wood down, put 2 screws in it, and that's going to be that. A railing will be a 2x4. So really, there are no repairs. The only really exception to that would be if there is an active environmental event happening, such as an oil tank that's leaking actively or something of that nature, then they will go ahead and repair that to stop any kind of destruction to the property. Active flooding that's actively happening, they're not going to do major repairs, but if it's something as simple as a pipe that's leaking, say at the water meter, something of that nature, they'll stop that. But other than that, they're doing no repairs at all. So we do encourage you to do a home inspection. And again, your offers should represent that this is as is. Next slide. Who can buy a HUD home? There's a few categories. Owner occupants typically is investors or government agencies. Owner occupants are given priority during certain cycles, and we'll talk about that. Owner occupants must occupy the house for a minimum of 1 year, and you're considered an owner occupant if you have not bought a HUD in the last 2 years. So if your buyer has purchased a HUD house in the last 2 years, but they say, oh no, we're going to live in this house, they still can't offer in that owner occupant initial period because they have purchased a HUD home in the last 2 years. So just make sure when you're asking about, have you owned a HUD home? Have you purchased a HUD home in the last 2 years when you're doing that initial offer period? Investors, there's no restrictions on quantity, and there's a different bidding cycle for that, which we will go into in the next slides. Who cannot buy a HUD home? Basically, if you're affiliated with any employee or anyone who works directly with the management of HUD homes, you cannot buy a HUD home. If you, and this is very important for you to know, and if you don't know, you go to your broker. If your brokerage lists HUD properties, so I'll give you an example. I know that Coldwell Banker lists HUD properties. No agent within the firm can buy a HUD home. No immediate family member of that agent can buy a HUD home. So it's very important that you understand this when you're looking at these. And so that means if you're working for a Coldwell Banker, you work for New England Realty, or you work for Pulse Realty, you as an agent cannot buy a HUD home or your immediate family members. So just make sure you check with your broker that you're not a listing agent for HUD.
Sorry.
Back it up.
We have a question in the chat. It's from Terry, and he's asking Doug Ledewitz if he can confirm with the repair escrow, buyer can only finance the repair cost if the home appraises over contract sales price.
Let me just jump in right there. Write down your questions, and at the end of this, we'll go ahead one by one and we'll answer. We'll have a good question and answer period at the end of this. So hold on to that question. NAID registration. So we're going to show you a little bit how to do this. Any licensed real estate agent can sell a HUD home, but your brokerage must hold an NAID registration. It's a specific HUD number that your broker has. If you don't know if they have one, ask your broker and they'll say, oh, yes, I don't know. And we'll show you how to verify that, but your broker must have an NAID. Once your broker has an NAID, then you as the agent will be able to register to bid on HUD homes. And we're going to show you how to do that in detail. Once your broker receives the NAID number, all the agents will use that NAID number to put offers in on HUD homes on HUDHomestore.com. Next slide. Creating a bidder account. So we're going to actually go live on this. We're going to move over to HUDHomestore.com.
Whoops. Bear with me. There you go.
Okay. So once your broker has their NAID number, and you'll see at the top next to home NAID portal, that's where your broker goes in to do all that. We're not going to go over that today. So if you don't know if your broker has an NAID number, go ask them. And if they don't, they're going to go into that NAID portal. You can go ahead and click that and we'll just quickly see what that looks like. Just really quick, and then we'll go back. And then you'll see click here to go to the NAID portal. And that's where your broker goes and they can apply for NAID. If their NAID is expired, they can recertify it. They can do different things there. That's where your broker is going to go. Once they have the NAID and they've given you that NAID number, that's when you can go in and register as an agent, and we'll show you how that happens here. So we'll go to the top right under register. And then you're going to bidder. See that bidder right there? So you'll click on that if you're not already registered. And then you'll go to the NAID type, and you are a selling listing broker. And your role will be the selling agent there. And that's where you'll put in your broker's NAID, and then you'll put in your real estate license, not your broker's. It's important that here you put in your real estate license, because if you put in your broker's, you won't be able to register properly. And if you win a bid, everything is going to go to your broker, not you. So then you'll just put in your license expiration, add your office information, which will be your email address, very important. You'll create your username and password, and you'll go down your contact information. Make sure you put your email address, not your broker's. And then you'll finish it up, hit submit, and then there you go. You're registered to bid on HUD homes. At that point, you hit submit, and it's that simple. So then we'll go back to the slides.
Oops. Am I there?
Nope.
There you go.
There we go. So that's how you create the bidder account.
All right.
And there we go. Finding property. So once you have a bidder, an active bidders account, now you'll be able to search HUD Homes on HUDHomestore.com. This is really important. If you rely on the MLS to tell you when a HUD house is listed, you're a day late and a dollar short. So this is a really big secret, and not just searching them, but then saving searches specifically that will notify you when a HUD house comes on the market. So finding properties, we'll go ahead and do a search here. So say you're looking for all Connecticut, you go Connecticut, and then you just hit, typically you just choose a city, use a zip code and hit search.
All right, I'm gonna move to the live screen.
Okay.
All right,
There you
I've
go.
already logged in.
So we're logged in and we're going to do a state by Connecticut. So make sure that when you're searching, you're logged in. It's very important because we're going to do some search saving. And this is a big secret. It seems very small, but it's a big secret that's going to give you an edge over other agents that don't know about this, that should be on this call. So you put in Connecticut, and then let's do a city. Let's do Waterbury, or wherever there's a HUD house right now. Let's see there.
Let me just do a state.
Waterbury. We'll do state, see what's available somewhere. Oh, there is.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go back to city. We'll do search. There you go. You can pull up the property.
Oh. There we go.
There you go. So we have 2 properties in Waterbury. So say you want to be notified when properties come up in the city of Waterbury. So now you're logged in. You have to be logged in for this as an agent under your profile. Then you'll notice in the black bar, it says save search. So you hit save search, hit OK. Now, great, you save the search. Now what? This is the secret. Now you go back up to bidder functions. Hit bidder functions. Just wait a minute there. Now see saved searches. You're going to hit save searches. And now you see this Waterbury. See the edit frequency. You're going to hit edit frequency. You want to receive emails daily. And then hit submit. I know that sounds crazy. It's like, what? Why do we have to go through all these steps? Now what happens is when a HUD home store property gets listed, before it hits the MLS, before you're notified by the MLS, you're going to get notified by HUD Home Store that a HUD property has been listed, which means you already know about the property a full day, day and a half before anybody else sees it on the MLS or gets an email for searches for their buyers. Also, what that does is when the property goes under deposit, right? And then something happens, the deal falls apart. It goes back active on the market. It will tell you when that happens. And you'll get an email that day, this property is available. Well, typically the owner occupant period by then has maybe gone by, or now they're opening bids every day. So you're going to get a notification, property's back on the market. You'll be able to go in immediately, submit your offer, and guess what? If it's daily opening, before most agents even know it's been put back on the market, the next morning, boom, your bid gets accepted. If it's an acceptable bid, of course. So very, very important little secret. Specific towns you're looking for your buyers, do your save searches, go in there, edit the frequency to daily, hit save again. Now you are in the know on all HUD homes based on the different cities that you're searching. Let's go back to the slides real quick. let's talk a little bit about bidding periods and then we'll go back and show them to you. So general market listings, typically if a property is insured or insured with escrow, there's a 15-day owner occupant exclusive period where only owner occupants can bid for the first 15 days. That's the period. There is a 10-day accumulated sealed bidding period, which means during that 10-day period, all the offers are collected. None of the offers are opened. They're just collected for 10 days. Owner occupants. On the end of that time, the 11th day, all the offers are then opened. And the highest acceptable bid to HUD is then chosen, irregardless of financing. So if it's an insured property, meaning it doesn't need any repairs at all, it goes straight FHA. They call it 203B. I know that's confusing, but 203B is regular FHA financing. They open all the bids, they have an acceptable bid, boom, it's done. Now, if there's not an acceptable bid during those first 10 days of the 15-day exclusive period, then the following 5 days, they open the bids daily. So every day, any bids they get, they open them, it's acceptable, it's accepted. Now, if that property goes through the 15 days, owner occupant exclusive, does not sell, then it opens to all bidders, including investors, on day 16. And for investors, the bids are always opened daily. So those safe searches really come in handy during that time, because every day, say an investor puts it under deposit, they don't perform, comes back active on HUD Home Store. I'll give you an example. I'm a listing broker, so I get notified the property has fallen out, it's going listed again. Sometimes I won't get that notification till 9 o'clock at night, but it's already on HUD Home Store. So there it is. You get the email, oh my goodness, my investor bid on this, we didn't get it. I'm going in tonight at 9:30, submitting my offer. Well, guess what happens somewhere around 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day? Boom, they open the bid, accepted, right? I didn't even get time to open my email, see that it came back and put it active on the MLS yet. So very important for you to know this. Okay, uninsured. So that's insured or insured escrow. They have that owner occupant exclusive period. Uninsured properties. Uninsured properties are basically properties that need more than $10,000 in work needed. That has a 5-day owner occupant exclusive period. So when you see these properties, you know, oh, these are pretty tough when you see them uninsured, but maybe not necessarily too bad. Maybe it just needs a roof and a boiler, right? That blows out to $10,000, something like that. And then all bidders, uninsured 5 days, and then all bidders on day 6. Lotteries. So lotteries are good neighbor next door. We're not going to dive deeply into that. That's a whole nother subset. Lottery is basically a property that's in a targeted market area by the federal government to be usually a disadvantaged area within your marketplace. And the 7 days is for nonprofits, government agencies only, or specific owner occupants like police officers, nurses that work within that community. And they can, if they can buy those properties for 50% off the appraised value, but there is no commission. So those never hit the MLS. Another reason why, if you're searching on HUD Home Store, you can search the whole state for good neighbor next door only. Now, when one comes up, you know about it. Agents that are only relying on the MLS will never know about it. So if you have, say you have so we know there's targeted areas in specific cities in the state. There's targeted in Hartford, Bridgeport, Meriden, Torrington. There's these good neighbors come up. So if you're working with a police officer, a nurse, an EMT, paramedic, a teacher in those cities, where those targeted areas are. Make sure you have your HUD Home store searches in those cities. You can get them a house for 50% off. Now, there is no commission. So you would have to, in order to get paid for that, you would have to get it from the buyer. Those never hit the MLS. Those are directly through HUD Home Store. So it's a good little thing to know about. Next slide. Okay, we're going to go through this and I'm going to show you how you see this on HUD Home Store. So financing codes, property condition financing types, insurable, qualifies for FHA 203B. What does that mean? Regular FHA. That's what it means. That's just the official HUD designation of what an FHA loan is. Okay, they do not have minimum property requirements, meaning they're saying, their appraiser says, the HUD appraiser says, property doesn't need any repairs to meet minimum FHA requirements. They also require, they do qualify for 203K as well. So if your buyer doesn't like the kitchen, it's there, it's okay, but they want a new kit, that you can do a 203K on these insured properties, IN. Notice that IN there. And I'll show you that on HUD Home Store. Then you have IE, insurable with escrow. That's where that escrow comes in. The property may need a roof. Now, because it's a property, just because it needs a $10,000 roof, you can still go FHA with this escrow. The escrow means, say your buyer doesn't have $10,000, but they can still go regular FHA, finance the $10,000. They have to qualify for it, of course. Imagine $100 down program. They only need $100 bucks. Okay, well, actually, they'll need $1,000 deposit. Say they got $1,000 bucks. That's all they have. They ask for 3% closing costs. Very difficult these days. You'd have to really bid over the asking and ask for that money back. Most of the time, not saying that's what you do, but you may have to. Finance an extra 10,000, go regular FHA, amazing, 100 bucks, they can buy the house, even though it needs a roof. So that really opens up your buyer pool where, especially in this market, you're like, oh, geez, you know, it's so hard to find something for my buyer. This does it on these HUD homes. So that's insured with escrow. Just because they say it only needs, so there's disclosures and we're going to show that to you. Just because they say it only needs, say, $6,000 worth of repairs, doesn't mean that that's all it's going to need. So you got to have a discerning eye when you're walking through that property going, I see a little peeling paint over here on the trim. It may be more like 9,000. So just kind of use your judgment and your understanding of FHA conditions in utilizing this repair escrow, because your buyer, when they have an appraiser, the appraiser will may call out something outside of what HUD did themselves. Uninsurable. These properties do not qualify for FHA. They've decided that it needs more than 10 or 11,000 worth of repairs. So you cannot do regular FHA. You're going to be relegated to 203. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Uninsurable means it's not going to qualify for any kind of FHA. Uninsurable 203K eligible. So you'll see that means it will. So really uninsurable, not 203K eligible is really a dilapidated, falling down house. But almost 99% of them are 203K eligible, uninsured. That's what that UI means. More than 10,000 or 11,000 repairs needed. Next slide. Okay, so let's go back and we'll show you where all that information is on HUDHomestore.com before we move on to this one. Okay,
all right.
so pull up. This one here is in the exclusive period. We'll pull it up. Okay, so up top, you'll see the case number and you'll see eligible bidders, right? We're in the exclusive period, owner occupancy, it'll tell you right there. it will tell you when the submission deadline is. So that's the first 10 days. So on January 5th, they're gonna, well, really January 6th, they're gonna open up all the bids that they received till then, right? The bid submission time, see, 7 days, 14 hours, 26 minutes. So if you're waiting to submit your bid, that's your real deadline. So you don't have to submit a bid today. You can wait. I would suggest that you don't wait till more than maybe 6 days from now in case there's a glitch, something's down, your internet's not working. Your buyer's gonna be really mad at you if that time period goes by and they don't get it. So don't wait to the last minute when submitting your owner occupant bids. Now, a little bit down below, you'll see addendums. And in the addendums, you'll see the property, not the PCR. Yeah, let's look at the PCR report, if you don't mind. This may get a little funky here when we're doing this. So this PCR report is done by the initial inspector for HUD. They're not a home inspector. They're basically the trash out guy or gal. So this, they'll do a basic look at the mechanicals. So they'll put a generator on it and see, did it pass, did it fail? So you see here, the stove range oven failed, damaged. So that's going to be an NPR item for your FHA buyer. You know that they're going to have to spend $500 on a stove for their FHA. The plumbing passed. They say it passed. It did pass. So when you're walking through these homes, you're going to want to pay attention. Is the plumbing even there? I've had them where they said the plumbing passed and the plumbing is no longer there. So just make sure you're looking as you're walking through the house. And so this is just a general guide, but don't take these as gospel. All right, let's look at the property condition report. I mean, the other disclosure. This is where it gets funky.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Just close that page, Doug.
Yeah. Then sometimes when we close them,
Now you gotta go back to your browser. There you go.
yeah, this is where it gets funky. Sorry, guys. It's not very intuitive. We got that. While we're waiting for him to fix this, I hope so far this is giving you some good tips and tricks. That's why we're here. We want to make sure that you're not afraid to do these and that you understand how this can really open up your FHA buyer pool and really maybe find a home for them that you maybe wouldn't have been able to find previously. So here we are. So back here, we can go back to addendums. And the other really important one is the property listing disclosure. So we'll open that one up in a new tab or a new window. There we go. So here's a good one. This is insured escrow. So it says peeling paint and wood rot. Okay. And then it has, well, here it's interesting. They used to put the amount of money that they thought it would be, but they're not putting it here anymore. It's actually given to us as listing brokers in an email. So we have to actually put that on the MLS ourselves. So typically when we see peeling paint and wood rot, it's usually anywhere between $400 and $4,000, depending on how much peeling paint and wood rot there is. So here would be an escrow. So let's say they would say 500. You could go regular FHA. And they can finance the cost to fix that peeling, paint, and wood rot. Or if they have the cash themselves, they can go ahead and just have that in an escrow account and go regular FHA. And that's the difference between a HUD home and a regular house, where you don't have to fix it. You go regular FHA. We'll go back to HUD Home Store, Doug. And go back to the listing. Okay, so then let's go down a little bit more. You can see it's the list price. Again, it doesn't say how much the insured escrow is. It just says IE 203K eligible. Yes. Okay. And you can see the addendums, and this is where all that information is. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Oh, I'm sorry. Listing period. You can see there the exclusive period. Now, see the difference? If you look up to bid submission deadline, that's the initial 10 days. And then the next line down is how much time is remaining, 7 days, 14 hours. But the exclusive period ends January 10th. On January 11th, it will then move to the investor period. So that's something for you to take note of when you're looking at these listings. If you have an investor, the period you're really interested, the date you're interested in is the period deadline, moving from exclusive to it's called extended, and that's when it opens to all bidders. Let's go back to the slides. HUD home bidding process. HUD homes are always sold, offers are put online through electronic bidding. It's the only way to buy a HUD home. I got an email yesterday with a written offer on a HUD home. Read your agent remarks in the MLS. It will specifically say in there where to go, hudhomestore.gov. HUDhomestore.gov. They just changed it. It used to be hudhomestore.com. It does forward to hudhomestore.gov, but hudhomestore.gov is a safe way to go. That's their new website. Agents must submit bids on the buyer's behalf. Buyer doesn't do it themselves. You have to do it for them. Next slide. Before you submit the sales contract in HUD Home Store, get this information. What's nice about this is you don't have to have your buyer with you signing anything. You submit the bid on their behalf. They don't have to be there. So, but what you will need is this: you need the buyer info, their legal name. Unfortunately, you're going to need their social security number. This is the federal government, so you're going to need their social security number. You're going to have to submit it on their behalf. Some buyers I know will balk at this, and you'll just have to notify them, well, then I cannot submit your offer. You have to have their social security number, their address, their phone number, and their email. You will have to have an attorney. You'll have to have attorney info for the buyer. You cannot submit the offer without attorney information. What is nice is, and I'm going to show this to you, typically if it's an attorney that's in Connecticut, chances are HUD has their information and it will pre-populate for you once you look up the attorney's name. But sometimes they won't, and you'll have to do it yourself. So make sure you have their attorney information. If for some reason they don't have one, you've got a day deadline. You need to submit this offer. The buyer's dallying. They don't understand the gravity of the situation. You're freaking out. You can just put one in there. Just put one in there. And you can always change it later. Okay, so if you don't have the attorney's information, don't panic. Just put one in and then change it later. But it does make it a little difficult because they're going to accept if the offer is accepted, because now the email is going to go to that attorney. Okay, so much easier, just get an attorney, say, buyer, listen, you need to have an attorney to submit an offer on a HUD home. Do it early. Do it early before you're in a panic with a day left. Okay. You'll have to have proof of funds. Yeah, you can see there. Oh yeah, thanks, Doug. If it's a business, you got to have the LLC name, the EIN number, which is the tax ID. So if you have an investor and they're buying in an LLC, you need to have their tax ID number and have their LLC docs ready if their offer is going to be accepted. But the most important thing is their EIN. You're going to need that tax ID number to submit an offer on behalf of an LLC as an investor. You really should have that up front if you're working with an investor that's buying in an LLC. It's good practice as a broker or realtor to have that information up front anyway. Especially they're bidding on foreclosures. You need that number all the time. When you're submitting your offers, make sure you're not going to have to upload proof of funds to submit the offer, but if you get an accepted offer, you will. And always go highest and best. Always, always, always go highest and best. You're serving yourself and your buyer that way, because they're not, the only time HUD's going to counter you is if they received no acceptable bids. They don't come back and say, okay, everyone, highest and best. No, if an acceptable bid is received, they're going to take it. And again, it's not going to matter. A cash offer versus a CHFA 100% financing down payment assistance. If that CHFA buyer is $1 more than that cash buyer, they're taking the CHFA offer. If it's an insured one, of course. So always go your highest and best. Don't be discouraged. Oh, there's going to be all these cash offers. HUD doesn't care. $1 more, that's what they're going to take. If an offer is accepted, you only have 2 business days to submit the entire package to Rain Asset Management Services. You'll get an email from them with all the instructions. We're not going to go over all that today. That's in another segment. I'm just here to help you be competitive and get the little tips and secrets to get stuff accepted and get these properties under deposit. Next slide. Okay, let's go back and I'm going to show you submitting an offer. Okay, so say you want to submit an offer on this property. It's in the exclusive period. There's a big blue button. You have to be signed in now. And then there's a big blue button, submit offer. You have 15 minutes to complete your offer. So that's why I wanted to show you the information that you're going to need, because if you don't have it, you're halfway through the offer, it's going to time out on you. You're a selling broker. You put their NAID in there. This is mine. Don't put mine in. You're going to have your own. And there you go. It verifies it. And now there you go. And it asks you, so you'll see that the purchase price of the property is. So that's going to be the purchase price. And I'm going to show you a couple secrets here on how to be more competitive when submitting your offers. So list price 142. Okay, this is, we know what kind of market this is, 200,000. Go ahead, Doug, put 200,000 in there. Okay. So then you're going to put what we're applying for. So see, you have the option here for repair escrow. So we'll just go regular 203B, which means FHA. A lot of agents get scared. What does this mean? Oh no, it just means 203B just means FHA. Now, HUD will allow 3% in buyer closing cost credits. So you went way over, buyer has no money, you're going to do a $100 down program. They need some closing costs, $6,000. So 6A, you see that $6,000? That's the 3% buyer broker commission. Guess what? You can change that yourself if you like. So we'll give you an example. This buyer has agreed to go 200. So you know what? You're not going to play with commission, but you can, if your broker agrees to. Say your buyer said, I only want to come in at 142. You go, oh, geez, never going to get it. You know what? I'm going to give him a better shot. I'm going to move that to $5,000 buyer broker commission. Yeah, change the purchase price to just, yeah, we'll do 142. Now look down at line 7. Let's go to line 7, Doug. You see that net to HUD? That is the number that HUD is using to decide whether it's an acceptable offer. So your buyer broker commission, if we change that to 1,000, which none of us would ever do, but or we may, we have the luxury to do that. We can change it, make it whatever we want. See that net goes up. So if you have a buyer that says, I won't go a cent over 142, you go, oh man, if we can just get them to 142.5, I think we can get this. You can change your commission and get that net number up a little bit to get a little bit more competitive. If you so choose, you obviously need to speak to your brokers first before you do that as an agent. Okay, and so that net number is the most important number. That's what HUD is making their decisions based off of. Okay. Line 8, purchaser is, what type of purchaser they are. Now you see they choose it for you because you're in the exclusive period. You can't choose any other option. Here's what I say. Always choose may hold offer as a backup. The reason being is if you don't get the offer and and another offer was chosen, but they don't perform, they never sign the documents, whatever, they're going to go, if there are other offers in there, they're going to go to the next acceptable offer without going back on the market. So if you have if you say may not hold it as backup, then you're out. It's either going to come back on the market or it's going to go to the very next acceptable offer and you're out. So I always say, choose it as a backup. And then obviously you have to ask these questions. Are you an employee? Are you affiliated? Are you affiliated with a purchaser? Is it, sorry, I got a plane going overhead. Are you affiliated? So are you the purchaser or an interested party? And you have to answer this is the federal government. What you don't want to do is give any false statements with the federal government. They do have the IRS at their disposal. Okay, so you will have an individual social security number or an EIN. See, if you're doing a business EIN, you'll have to have that information. So we'll just put in some information there. And again, we'll have a good question and answer period at the end of this. So hang on to your questions. We have to do this in order to move to the next stage. Sorry about that. So here's where you need the buyer select closing agent information, which is the buyer's attorney. Now, once you start typing under company name, a drop-down menu is going to appear. So let's say the law offices of, we have there Larzadine, right? It comes down. Once you click, it'll pre-populate it for you. So again, if you don't have one, and then it'll do it in the next escrow officer, again, there it is, it pre-populates for you. They have almost every attorney in the state, most of them. If they don't, you can put it in. And so let's assume our buyer didn't have an attorney, they dallied. We just put this in for now, and then we can change it later. Then you have your certifications here. You can see the e-signature for brokerage information. You need to put your information and make sure that the email is getting sent to you. Very important. If you have your broker's email in there, what's going to happen is the contract package is going to get sent to your broker and not to you, which a lot of times will mean you don't know in time because your broker's in Florida or something, and you don't even know you got an acceptable bid. So make sure you put your email in there and your information. Okay, and you can read down here. You are responsible for reviewing the bid information and submitting required documentation. Very important that you're verifying that the emails are correct. And then you hit continue. Now, we're not going to go too much into this, but now is a good time, if you think your offer is going to get accepted, to get the errors and a copy of the errors and omissions from the buyer's attorney and their juris number. So you can go to the jud.gov site and you can look for, or you can have the attorney send their juris ID from the courts. That's really what you're going to need documents from them if your bid is accepted. Okay, so that's basically how you submit an offer. We're not going to go to the next page. Oh yeah, actually let's put in the information and go to the next page just to see. Okay. That's pretty much it. Let's go back to the slides. See how easy that was? Buyer doesn't have to sign anything. So once you submit the offer, we're not going to have that because we're not going to submit the offer on that property. You're going to get what's called a bid number. And you can, and once the deadline goes by, you can go in and you put that bid number in, and we'll show you where to put it and search the results. If you get an acceptable bid, you'll be notified. If your bid is not chosen, you are not going to get notified. You're going to hear nothing but crickets. You're going to see that it left HUDHomestore.com. You haven't heard anything, right? Your first instinct is, I need to get on the phone and start calling the listing broker. No, a good way is you go into HUDHomestore.com and we'll show you where to go for that. If your bid is accepted, you are going to get communications from Rain, from us. The listing broker will contact you, and you'll get it from HUDHomestore.gov as well, saying your bid was accepted and what the next steps are. And then there'll be a DocuSign process. So Doug, let's just go to HUD Home Store and show them where we would put the bid offer number. And I need to update this and we'll get a screenshot of what that looks like in future presentations. So you're going to go up to, oh, you got one here, Doug. Oh, great. Do we have the, no, we don't. No. Do we have the number up top? No. So what you do is you go into bidder functions up at top. There it is. Yep. Bidder functions. Let's go up there, Doug, quick. And you'll have your offer number that they give you when you submit the offer. It's called a confirmation number. And then you go down to confirmation number there and you can put it in and then hit search and it will show you what the status of your bid is.
Hello. Yeah, come on in. I got to get my mask on.
Okay. And also, so if you have an accepted bid, you'll be signed in, and let's go up to the top under accepted bids. So if your bid is accepted, you'll hit that and it will show you here as well. All right, let's go back to the slides. Counter offers. We're almost done, guys, and then we'll go to question and answer, and we can show you things over if you need to. All offers within an acceptable range of the threshold, will, I'm sorry, this is written wrong, I just realized. All offers not within an acceptable range. So say all offers submitted were not in the acceptable range that HUD wanted. They will be countered with, what's interesting is they will counter via email everyone that submitted an offer. And they will tell everyone what the minimum amount they are willing to take. Pretty nice of HUD, isn't it? They're going to tell you what the least amount they're willing to take is. They're not going to tell just you, they're going to tell everyone. So don't resist the urge to say, oh, well, we'll just give them what they're willing to take. No, come back in with your highest and best again, especially in this market. And if I can reiterate anything, always come in with your highest and best. I'm not going to tell you you must do that, but I will suggest that you do that when offering on these homes. Because again, they counter everyone, not just you. So in the future, we're going to go through the entire flow once an offer is accepted and what the full general workflow of being under contract is and those details. But today we're just going to be doing how to compete and be a step ahead of the competition for showing up, being here and learning about HUD Homes. So from here, Doug, Ledewitz, do you have anything more to add before we go to Q&A?
No, I think you covered it all pretty well.
Okay, I guess if we can put your questions in the chat box and we'll go one by one. Rachel, I think last time you had handled the questions, correct?
Sure thing. Well, at this point, we're still seeing that same question that I asked earlier. I do see Doug Ledewitz replied that he'd have to get back to us on that.
I will speak on that a little bit. And Mike, feel free to chime in here if you'd like. The question was asked about, does the property have to appraise above contract price to finance the repair escrow? When the FHA appraiser is doing the appraisal, they are the ones that are noting the repair item. So typically their appraisal will be an as repaired appraisal. So if they think the property needs that $5,000, it will be a requirement of the appraisal to get those repairs done. So typically it will appraise with the repairs. However, the property does have to meet the general value requirements in general. So for example, if you come in 50,000 above the list price, you might have appraisal problems. In general, they're not going to be dependent or stemming from that $5,000 you added on for repairs. Most likely, it could just be that you're bidding way over value, because remember, the HUD's list price is generally based on appraisal that HUD has done, and that is what they feel like the property is worth. So always keep that in mind when you're bidding above. You want to get the property, but it can be a challenge if you bid too high above, as we've seen in some markets. So I hope that answers your question, Terry. If you have any follow-ups or you want to comment on that further, feel free.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that is if it doesn't appraise, HUD will not lower the bid amount to the appraised value. So it was 200, you bid 210, the appraisal comes in at 205, they won't lower it. So you actually have to cancel the contract. If, say, the buyer isn't willing to, say they have the money, they're not willing to bring the money, you can't they can't get the financing. You have to cancel the contract, but then it goes either to the next acceptable bid. If there wasn't a next acceptable bid, it goes back active on the market. You can rebid at the lower price. So that would really be the only options for you at that point.
Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I'll ask the the attendees if you have any other questions. This is a great time to ask. Well, seems as though our presenters did a wonderful job. They've really gave an in-depth presentation, and I think, oh, okay, we see one more question now. Can an immediate family member of an agent in a brokerage that is a HUD broker, purchase a HUD home listed by another agency? My answer to that, after listening to this presentation, would be it's a no-no, but I'm going to let the experts give you the real answer.
Go ahead, Doug. I'll give that one to you.
Yeah, that is a no. So if you are working, if you have is that Cheryl? If your brother wants to buy a property and you are a head broker and it is listed by my property or any HUD broker in the country, they cannot do that.
Now, it doesn't mean that it couldn't potentially slip through. The problem with that is that your broker would risk losing the contract forever. You could then be blackballed and then never be able to submit offers on HUD Homes ever again. And so you want to be following the rules and doing the right thing and not engaging in that kind of activity because it doesn't end well for anyone involved.
And you need to be careful, as Mike alluded to before, when you have multi-office brokerages which are managed by the same managing broker. It could be your office might not be a HUD broker, but you might have another office in another town that is a HUD broker, which is under the same supervision of a managing broker. And that would be included in that as well. So if that's the case, like a Coldwell Banker type situation, always check with your office manager and see if there's any conflicts. And you will be questioned by HUD several times along the process, entering offers, confirming offers, signing offers. They will make many check marks about that, making sure you are not an affiliated party. So answer honestly.
Thank you so much. And I'm seeing one more question, which is, does the lawyer have to be HUD certified, or are all lawyers certified?
The lawyer doesn't have to be HUD certified. They have to be HUD registered. So HUD just wants to make sure the lawyer is properly insured to do business in Connecticut and is in good standing with the state bar association, et cetera. That is an annual registration. So if they've done a HUD closing in the past 12 months, they should be registered already, and it will indicate that when you put their information in, as Mike showed before. If they haven't done a HUD closing in the last 12 months, it'll usually pop up and say, our information is expired on you. And that's where Mike had mentioned you would need their errors and omission insurance and or a copy of their juris number, which you can print out from the court website, because lawyers are not technically licensed in Connecticut. They don't have a license like we have. So it's a pretty simple process to get them registered with HUD.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you so much. Today we've had Michael Delgrego of New England Realty presenting, Doug St. John of New England Realty behind the scenes with your presentation, and Doug Ledewitz from Pulse Realty as a presenter. We thank you so much for this great information and hope that in 2022 we can do a follow-up presentation with you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, all. Happy New Year.
Thank you.